Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. This is for entertainment and education purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom. Testimony from Day 5 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press for the first time. Cassie Ventura described in disturbing detail what she allegedly witnessed inside Diddy's hidden underground tunnels. This wasn't about music, fame, or even their volatile relationship. This was something much darker. She testified under oath describing secret rooms, drug use, and women in masks. Some passages have been censored to meet YouTube's guidelines, but the court testimony remains intact. What Cassie revealed during her cross-examination on Day 5 left the courtroom stunned, and may hold the key to unraveling one of the most shocking celebrity trials in recent history. What was buried beneath Diddy's empire might finally be exposed. Day 5 of the trial opened with a strange sense of anticipation. Reporters shuffled in earlier than usual. The public gallery packed tighter than ever, and even the jurors seemed more alert. There was a heaviness in the air, and everyone knew why. Cassie Ventura was returning to the stand. Unlike the previous days of emotionally heavy, but legally routine testimony, today would be different. Something was coming. Cassie entered quietly, flanked by security, and took her seat across from the defense. She looked tired but calm. The judge reminded everyone that courtroom decorum would be strictly enforced. Then the questioning began. The defense, seemingly shifting strategy, skipped past basic relationship questions and instead asked Cassie to walk the court through Diddy's Los Angeles mansion, its design, layout, security protocols. The questions seemed oddly architectural at first, until one slipped through that stopped everything. Miss Ventura, have you ever been beneath the property inside the tunnel? There was a momentary pause. Gasps were stifled. The prosecution objected, calling it irrelevant and speculative. But the judge allowed it. Cassie took a deep breath. Yes, she said. That single word changed the mood in the room. For months, there had been rumors about tunnels, Reddit threads, anonymous claims, even jokes in the media, but no one had confirmed it. Not until now, the defense lawyer leaned in. And what exactly did you see when you went down there? I didn't want to go, Cassie began. He told me to follow him. He said he had something to show me. He was high. I was confused, but I followed. She explained how the entrance was outside, not inside the mansion itself, disguised behind foliage near the pool area. It looked like a slope, just part of the landscaping. But there was a hatch under the leaves. What she saw next, she claimed, would stay with her forever. Concrete stairs, steel doors. It got cold the deeper we went, and when we got inside, I knew this wasn't just some safe room. It was something else entirely. She wouldn't say more until prompted, but the room already knew they were going to hear something no one was ready for. Cassie's voice didn't shake as she began to recount what was inside. In fact, that's what made it all the more unsettled. There was a detached clarity in her tone, as if she had rehearsed this moment in her mind for years. The entrance led to a long corridor, bare walls, fluorescent lights. There was this buzzing noise, almost mechanical. It didn't feel like a part of a house. It felt like an institution. She described the walk as disorienting, twisting hallways with no windows and no cell service. She said, Diddy walked ahead of her, talking to himself, mumbling about proving a point. She thought about turning back, but didn't. He had that look in his eye, the one that said, don't argue. As they passed through a secured door, unlocked with a keypad, Cassie said they entered a large chamber-like room. Red lights, cameras in the corners, leather furniture. There was a smell, cleaning chemicals, sweat, something else. The room, she claimed, was not for relaxation or entertainment. It looked like it was made for something else. It was clinical, but also perverse. You could feel that bad things had happened there. She pointed out details. Shelves filled with props, masks, ropes, oils, and latex outfits. A rack of clothing that appeared unworn. Mirrors on the ceiling and floor. Soundproof padding on the walls. None of it felt like a fantasy, she said. It felt like control, like it was built for power over someone else. The defense pressed her, had you ever seen anyone else down there? Cassie hesitated. Yes. She described seeing two women in wigs and masks. One was lying still on a couch, the other sitting near a tripod with a camera mounted. They didn't speak. They didn't move much. He called them performers. I wasn't introduced. When asked how long she stayed, she said, not long. I made an excuse. I said, I felt sick. Back upstairs, she locked the bedroom door. Hours later, Diddy confronted her. He told me, you never saw anything. You don't repeat anything. That place is for me, not for you. That was the first and only time she went down there. But she never forgot it. When asked to elaborate on the layout, Cassie gave even more chilling descriptions. It wasn't just one room. There were 3 more I saw. One had no lights at all, just a bench in the middle and chains on the wall. The second had a full-length mirror and a digital panel next to the bed. I didn't know what it was for. The third had nothing but a chair and a box of wires. That's when I told him I wanted to leave. She said Diddy didn't argue. He laughed, told her she wasn't ready, said it was too real for her. But what unnerved her most were the words he whispered before opening the final door. He said, "This is where I bring the ones I own." Cassie described hearing muffled sounds behind one door, like a speaker playing music, but distorted. Then I realized it was voices. She couldn't confirm who was inside. She didn't want to know. She left the tunnel that night, shaking. Her clothes smelled like the place for hours afterward. In court, she admitted she never told anyone. Not friends, not family. Because I didn't want to disappear. That's how it felt. Like if I said something, I'd vanish. Like those girls in the room. The prosecution asked why she chose now. Because it's not just about me anymore. Because he's still doing this. Because if someone else ends up down there and never comes back, she trailed off. The judge asked for a brief recess, but the courtroom didn't move. Not a single soul, because what had just been said was more than testimony. It was a warning. When court resumed, the questioning shifted from the physical space beneath the mansion to what occurred above it, but was no less disturbing. The defense tried to reframe Cassie's experiences as consensual by focusing on the now infamous term freak-offs. It was a phrase that had already surfaced in her texts with Diddy, often in playful or coded language. But now the court was about to hear what it really meant. "Can you explain what a freak-off was?" the defense asked. Cassie nodded slightly. "It was a planned night. It always involved sex, sometimes with multiple people, sometimes filmed. He would assign roles. There were instructions. Sometimes drugs were mandatory. The jury was shown text messages dating back years. In one exchange, Diddy wrote, 'Game starts at 10 hours p.m. No breaking character. Until 8 a.m. In another, 'Bring candles, grab outfits. I want you in a wig.' Cassie clarified that these weren't isolated events. They were recurring, at least twice a month. Some were spontaneous. Others were arranged like business meetings. Time scheduled with people brought in by assistants. She admitted she sometimes agreed, but agreeing while drugged is not consent. I was often high. Sometimes I didn't remember what I had done. The prosecution interjected to clarify that these events, which Diddy referred to in writing as sessions, often happened in luxury hotels, sometimes in his private homes. Did any occur in the tunnel? The prosecutor asked. Cassie swallowed hard. Yes, she described one event where she was instructed to wear a latex suit and remain silent the entire night. I was told I'd be punished if I broke character. The guests that night included strangers. He never gave names. I was told to trust it. One message entered into evidence. Included a chilling line from Diddy. "This time, I want control." No safe word. Cassie testified she didn't always feel in control of her own body. Afterward, I felt hollow. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. She would later delete videos and photos. Not because of shame, but fear. Fear that if she spoke, something worse would happen. The questioning turned to the role drugs played in these encounters. What substances were commonly used during these events? The prosecution asked. Cassie didn't hesitate. Opiates, MDMA, benzo, weed. But mostly pills I didn't ask for. Sometimes I didn't know what I took until I passed out. She testified that the drugs were often handed to her by Diddy directly or his staff. He'd say it was something to help me relax, but it made me foggy, slow, compliant. She recalled one night waking up on the floor of his Miami property, covered in sweat with the camera light still on. I don't know how I got there. I don't know who was in the room. She told the court that eventually she began to suspect videos were being kept. He'd tell me you're mine forever now. At first I thought it was just words. Then I realized he was documenting things for control. The defense challenged this assertion, asking if she ever saw these videos. Only once briefly a clip on his laptop. Me too, men. I didn't remember it happening. She said she begged him to delete it. He told me I keep everything for leverage. Cassie explained. How this control extended beyond the bedroom. If she left the house without checking in, he'd call 50 times. If she didn't answer, he'd threaten to ruin everything. She also suspected he instructed people in his circle to stop. Dealing drugs to her directly, claiming she was stealing from him. It was like he was cutting off my access to anything outside of him. I was completely dependent. At one point, she claimed she tried to get help through a luxury rehab disguised as a spa. But he found out. He showed up, told them I was just dramatic. I checked out the next day. The courtroom sat in stunned silence, as she admitted to trying multiple times to quit pills on her own. But I couldn't. Not with him still in my life. As her testimony stretched into the afternoon, the prosecution opened a new line of questioning. Was she the only one? Cassie shook her head. I wasn't the only woman. Not by a long shot. She testified that during several freak-offs, other women were present. Sometimes escorts, sometimes women she didn't know. Sometimes celebrities. They'd arrive by car service. Sometimes masked, sometimes crying. I didn't ask questions. I was too scared. She identified Tiffany Red, a former friend, as one of the few people who saw what happened behind closed doors. Tiffany was at my 29th birthday party. She saw things. She told me it wasn't okay. I didn't listen. The court revisited an open letter Tiffany wrote years later. published in Rolling Stone, calling out Diddy's behavior. She tried to speak out. She was silenced. The prosecution pressed further. Did any staff members witness what was going on? Yes, Cassie said. His assistants helped coordinate. They knew when women were arriving. They cleaned up afterward. I don't know how much they knew, but they weren't blind. She also recalled the moment she realized her privacy was an illusion. I caught one of his assistants walking in on us once. He didn't flinch, just said, "Sorry, boss." The defense argued this didn't prove criminal intent. But Cassie's words struck a nerve. It wasn't about sex. It was about obedience, submission. He needed to feel untouchable. And when asked why so many stayed silent for so long, her answer was immediate. Because we thought no one would believe us. Because he's Diddy, she paused. But now the truth is out, and I'm not the only one ready to speak. As the courtroom braced itself for the next chapter of testimony, the prosecution turned to the most harrowing portion yet, the physical abuse. Cassie had already described the manipulation, the underground tunnel, and the disturbing parties. But what came next wasn't symbolic. It was bruises. It was blood. It was her body damaged in silence. Did Mr. Commies ever physically assault you? The prosecutor asked. Cassie nodded, staring down. Yes, many times. She described early signs. Grabbing her wrist too hard. Pushing her during arguments. He always apologized afterward. Promised it would never happen again. But it always did. The court was shown photos of a gash above her eyebrow. Cassie confirmed it was from a night she came home late after a solo dinner. He thought I was cheating. I wasn't. She claimed he was inebriated, paranoid, and aggressive. I was supposed to be packing for a trip, but I was tired. I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up to him screaming. I don't remember much after that, just the pain. She also recalled being kicked in the back after he read a text from another man. The prosecution pressed, "Do you remember who it was?" "Kid Cudi," she said. He thought we were having an affair. She said they had briefly dated during a break in her relationship with Diddy, but that he couldn't let it go. He brought it up constantly, used it to justify everything. She explained how even when she tried to walk away, he found ways to punish her. He'd send messages through people I trusted, make sure I felt watched, make sure I remembered who was in control. When asked why she didn't go to the police, she said, "Because I didn't think anyone would believe me." He had power. I didn't. Then she told the court something that dropped like a stone. After one of the worst nights, he threw me off a boat in the Caribbean. Said I was dead weight. I swam to shore and still went back to him. At that moment, one juror was visibly shaken. The judge called for a brief pause, but the damage was done. Cassie had just made it clear that the abuse wasn't symbolic or hidden in shadows. It was physical, it was violent, and it was real. When court resumed, the prosecution carefully guided Cassie into the final and most infamous event. The Intercontinental Hotel incident. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't online gossip. This was the night that changed everything. This was the night before your movie premiere, correct? They asked. Yes, she replied. I had waited years for that premiere. I was proud of the film. I wanted to celebrate, but Diddy had other plans. Cassie testified that he pressured her into one more freak off. He said it would be quick, that it would help us reconnect. She was hesitant. She said no at first, but he persisted. He told me it was tradition that every big moment needed one of our nights. Eventually, she relented. I wanted peace. I didn't want to fight the night before my red carpet event. Cassie described being driven to the Intercontinental under the impression it would just be the two of them. But when she arrived, there were already others in the room. 2 women, 1 male dancer, candles, cameras. I knew what it was. She said she was given a pill. He said it would help me loosen up. I was already exhausted. I took it. She remembered flashes. The dancer in a mask. Diddy recording on his phone. Herself in the mirror. Slurring words she didn't remember saying. Then nothing. I woke up hours later alone, covered in sweat. I checked my phone. He had sent a message saying, "You were amazing. I'm proud." I didn't know what he meant. She never asked. She got up, cleaned herself off, and walked the red carpet hours later with a smile. No one knew. No one saw the bruises under the dress. The prosecution then presented a series of texts from that day. Diddy asking if she was still glowing, if she wanted to do it again after the after party. Her answer, I never responded. That night, something inside her broke. And for the first time, she started to picture life without him. It wasn't just one night. It was the last straw in a decade of control. The next morning, she flew to New York alone. Diddy didn't follow. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. The final segment of Cassie's Day 5 testimony was quiet, measured, not as shocking as the tunnel or the violence, but somehow more haunting because it showed what happens after the cameras stopped flashing. She spoke about how she tried to heal. At first, I pretended none of it happened. I told people we just grew apart, but inside she was broken. She began therapy. Then she started to remember details. Nights she had repressed. People she had met. Rooms she had entered. Then came the civil lawsuit. It was filed swiftly and settled even faster. But to Cassie, it wasn't about money. It was about a record, a document that said, I wasn't crazy. It happened. Her lawsuit opened the floodgates. In the following weeks, other women came forward. Anonymous stories, new complaints, and then an FBI raid. Authorities stormed Diddy's properties in search of evidence related to trafficking and coercion. What they found remains sealed. But rumors swirled about underground structures, files, even recording devices. Reporters asked Cassie for interviews. She declined. I didn't want to become a symbol. I just wanted to be free. But now here she was in federal court, recounting everything in detail on the record under oath. When asked what she hoped would come of all this, her answer was immediate accountability, not just for me, but for everyone who went through that house, for every person who disappeared into those tunnels and never spoke again. And with that, her testimony concluded. The courtroom sat still as the judge dismissed the jury for the day. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the world outside already knew something monumental had just happened. Cassie Ventura didn't just testify. She tore the lid off a hidden world, one that had been shielded by money, fame, and silence. And no matter what comes